Hey, my friends, welcome to another episode of the Extraordinary Family Life Podcast. How's it going? Are things extraordinary in your life? I hope they are. I hope you're having just a fantastic time in life right now. And we're gonna dive into that today. I'm feeling so passionate and so fired up about today's topic. Well, partly because we just got back from a 5-week family vacation, like epic road trip. We went out and had some unbelievable experiences. I shared a couple of them in the recent podcasts. We got to meet up with people all across the country, and we were super deliberate about creating memories and experiences. And we met up with people who are creating memories and experiences, who are alive. They're lit up by choice because of the way they choose to live. But we also met with a lot of people who are not lit up. They're just existing. And they're just sitting around kind of letting life happen. And we we were rolling along, you guys. We only planned on being gone 3 weeks, and then we're like, nah, let's extend it. Let's just keep going. This is awesome. And we made some major choices, and we actually made things happen that even I think about this kind of stuff all the time, and yet even I get caught in it still of like, oh, I don't know if that can happen. I don't know if we can do that, or I'm just not conscious and deliberate enough to make it happen. So here's the bulk of the message today, the main message that I want to just drive home, is that for most people, the only things that happen in their lives are things that happen to them. And I want to invite you to consider that you have far more power than you think you do to make things happen. Not just to let them happen to you, but to actually make things happen, and more specifically, to make things happen for you. The things are happening that you make them happen for you, right? That the universe and God and everything is conspiring in your favor, and that you are an active participant. You're the player here. You're on the stage. You're calling the shots. Right? Because otherwise, nothing really happens in our lives unless things happen to us, as though we are objects and puppets. Right? Where it's easy to feel like think and feel and have confirmation, right, in our world that things are just happening to us, that life is kind of out of our control. But again, I want you to roll with me here. Think about it. Even if you're like, nah, I don't know if that's true. Just think about it. Sit on it for a while with me and really consider how much more of an active role you can take in creating your own circumstances. Now, I know, depending on where you are in your journey, that idea might seem kind of far-fetched or dramatic or a little bit out there. And I want to emphasize this because I remember feeling that way so many times for so many years and in different things. And even when I started to change in one area of life where I was like, oh, wait a minute, you know what? I do have more control here. Geez, I thought things were only a certain way and they had to be that way, and I was stuck in that. And I would make a mental shift and be like, no, I have more control over this area of life. I literally remember still thinking that other areas of my life were out of my control. As though, in my own journey, my own journey to taking full responsibility and ownership for my life, it happened in segments. Because mentally I just couldn't wrap my mind around the thought that, like, oh, I don't know. Come on, can you really control your circumstances? I mean, life just happens, right? It just happened. I can't do anything about that. And I didn't I didn't fully comprehend my own response ability, right? And my own ownership of being the king of my kingdom, or in your case of ladies, the queen of your kingdom. And how we are responsible and capable for every detail, and that we truly are the players. And well, I mean, however you want to say it, right? We're calling the shots. We're not puppets, but we will be if we don't take an active role. Then other people do. They pick up those strings. Let's go with the puppet. They pick up those strings and they start manipulating, and things just happen to you. Whoa. So, I mean, let's dive in, right? So, like, obviously, we can start at any level and go with the physical condition of our bodies. Now, there's nothing I can do to change my height, right? That's where I am. There's nothing I can do to change the size of my huge, wide foot. There's nothing I can do about that, right? I'm covered in freckles. There's nothing I can do about that. But what can I do? Right? And so there's this fine line there. Like, okay, I can't change my height. Man, I can totally, like literally completely transform the condition of my body. But some of it, and myself included, we were in a space and a time where, maybe we tried a few things and it didn't work. And we thought, nope, this is just the way things are going to be. And it's easy to blame the genetics, right? Because the things I just mentioned are genetics. And they're in some of those things, I'm not going to be 6'4". I just not going to happen. But I can totally alter the way I feel. My energy levels, my fitness levels, my strength levels, right? My endurance, my stamina, the percentage of body fat, where we can train, right? And so even with my coaching clients, I've been working on some of them have major fitness goals, things they have never done before. And they're pushing those limits. And I've done the same, and maybe you've done the same, where you just get so determined and you decide deep down, you're like, okay, this changes. And you can go, and I know people are doing it, some of my clients are doing it, going from like literally not being able to run even a couple of miles to now chasing down a marathon, right? Or a triathlon. Or swimming a certain distance, or cycling, or just literally changing their bodies. Some of my clients have gotten in a better physical condition than they've been in the last like 2 decades. And they were just like, this is just the way it is. I can't do anything about it. I've tried things, it's not working. But we can start there, and we can make things happen instead of just letting things happen and handing over that control. What about, here's an interesting one, right? Is our relationships, and the amount of relationships that we have and the quality of relationships we have, even for people who are single, even in dating. Dating is one of those interesting things where it's easy to slip into that. Well, if it's not happening, there's not much I can do about it. That's an easy one to slip into. In fact, I just had a recent new coaching client that's like, I want to date more. I want to, go on lots of dates, and I want to find my future spouse. But what do I do? It either happens or it doesn't. And I was like, that's one of those spaces where people are, as a general rule, far less proactive than they could be. And so we walked through that. It's like, no. Like, let's set some goals. Set up some goals of how many people you're going to meet and how many dates you're going to go on. And it was like, really? Like, what? You're like, no. If we take far more responsibility and right more ownership, more accountability, more planning, more scheduling, more deliberate action, you can change the game. And I did this, you guys. You know my story. I was shy and timid, but I've told you multiple times when I was out on my own in my late teens. There were literally time periods I'd moved to a new area or something, and I had no family around, and I had no friends, and I was shy and timid. And again, there was a perfect example of I believe that's the way I was. So like, if people didn't come up and talk to me, I put all the power in somebody else's hands, and they're not going to pick it up. And so I believed like, oh, well, I guess I'll never have friends. And that was a major shift I had to make of like, wait a minute, no. Like, I'm not going to just sit around like a puppet and wait for people to befriend me and kind of moan and whine and cry if they don't. And when I made that shift, I'm like, no, I'm going to make friends. They're like, well, you can't do it. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's this belief system like, well, no, this kind of it has to happen to me. Like, people have to befriend me, or there's no one around, or how do I do it, right? Until I made that switch, like, no. Like, I'm gonna become very friendly. I'm gonna work on my social skills. I'm gonna practice talking to everyone, and I'm gonna have the attitude of like, hey, wait a minute, any stranger. Check this out. This is such a cool idea. Any stranger you see, around you, literally could be your next best friend. How cool is that? And if you're single, like, you could be, you roll into the grocery store, you go to church or something, you see, somebody that could be your future spouse, right? And you got to have that paradigm, because at some point it will be. Like, you'll meet someone, you'll see someone. Like I saw Rachel, right? I went to this meeting with a bunch of college-age students, and she was there. Like, the reality was, the girl I saw that day would be my future wife. And I had to be super proactive. I've told that story in another podcast, but I had to be super proactive in order to meet her and go on a date with her. Right? It wasn't like, oh, well, shoot, there she goes. She didn't talk to me. I didn't get a chance to talk to her. She talked to somebody else before she left the building, and I ran over and talked to him. I was like, hey, set me up. Right? So even with that, and the quality of your relationship, sometimes you think, well, they're just not doing it. They're not doing their part. What can you do? How many dates can you go on if you're single? Like, plan it. Like, how many people can you talk to this week? If you want more friends, or you want deeper connections, let's do this. Let's dive into that one right there. So instead of just letting your relationships happen to you, what can you do to make them happen for you? How can you invest in your relationships? So some of you I know want more friends, and some of you want better friendships, right? So I'm going to ask both of you, what can you do weekly? What kind of goal can you set? And it seems weird, like goal setting around making friends or being friendly, but that's my point. Like, we either let it happen to us, or we're more deliberate about making it happen. So when I was dating or looking for friends, I just set this goal. I'm going to greet and smile and greet everyone that I make eye contact with. And that was hard for me. And so I was smiling, and I made myself into a more outgoing, happy, jovial, friendly person. Man, it just changed everything. People were smiling, waving, talking back. And just that action, I'd like, hey man, how's it going? And they would stop and talk to me. Right? So it was almost as though I activated that fact that they were going to now talk to me. Before I'd walk past and like, oh, they didn't greet me, they didn't talk to me. And then I'm like, I'm going to have more meaningful conversations. And I thought about it. Okay, what questions can I ask? What can I say? How can I have a conversation that's actually impactful? It's memorable, fun, enjoyable. And I practiced that, and I thought about it. And I had to memorize questions because I was so timid and shy. Like, my brain would freeze when I got around people. And so then I set go for dates, and I was going on 4 to 5 dates a week. This was when I was in college in my early 20s. I'm like, I don't know girls, and I don't know myself. I wanted to get to know as many people as I can, and I wanted to go on all kinds of dates, just to learn skills, learn about myself, learn about girls, learn about, just meet tons of people and have tons of friendships. Right? And I grew and grew and grew and had so many fun experiences, and so many terrible experiences. You got to go through those too. They didn't all end up well. But you go through that, right? And you're making things happen. You're being deliberate. Same with work, right? And income. I know there are a lot of people in the world who feel like in many ways they're puppets of a career or a job. That, oh no, wherever the work is, wherever the job is, that's where I have to move. That's what I have to do. Like I don't. For so many people, they only live where they live because of the job. And for many of them, they wouldn't live there. They wouldn't choose to live there if it weren't for the job. And then the job tells them when they work and how much they earn. And I remember being in that world and feeling totally stuck. Like, okay, I've got this career. They tell me where I can live. They tell me how much I can earn. And there's really nothing I can do about that. And I believed it. I would think about it. Like, there's got to be something else I could do. And then I'd come back, well, no, like, they're in charge. And it literally was like this puppet experience where they tell me how much I can earn and where I can live. And it wasn't until I met a few other people, even in the same space, that would just totally shift things. I'm like, oh, I don't have enough time to get a second job, even though I would milk cows or do something. I met people doing side hustles, right? They would set up a side hustle that required a little bit of time, but they would actually dramatically increase their income. Or a few of them wrote books. They're like, okay, I'm gonna take what I know here, what I'm doing, and I'm gonna write a book about it. And they end up getting massive amounts of royalties. In some cases, those royalties like doubled or tripled their income. Or they just started thinking differently, right? And so they put in this extra work, or they gain the skill. So like, okay, I'm going to get this training. I'm going to practice this skill until like the skill set and the knowledge base totally transform their lives. And so you can get to a place, and I want to invite you, I guess my invitation here is for all of you, like, take any and every area of your life and just ask yourself, how can I take extreme total ownership of this, full responsibility and responsibility, and be the key player, the decision maker in your life for every aspect. So you go from the physical condition of your body, even your appearance. Some of you could totally alter your appearance. How cool is that? Like, maybe it's time, and for reals, like, maybe it's time for a new hairstyle. Maybe it's time for an entirely different wardrobe. I met a guy one time. This has happened a couple times, but it was a pretty significant time. I met this guy, and he's a really, really successful YouTube strategist. So people who want to have a YouTube channel or a presence online, they pay him a lot of money to be a YouTube strategist. I met him, cool guy, and I was talking to him about what he's doing and just talking about his life. And I just mentioned he looks sharp, man. When I met him, like, dude, man, just the coolest shoes on, and he just looks sharp. And I mentioned, I'm like, dude, you look sharp. And he's like, hey, actually, I used to be just terrible. I just wore whatever I had. I just go, I'll buy that shirt and buy those pants and buy those shoes and wear that. And he's like, I didn't realize how much of a difference it made. Right? Here's a perfect example of how you dress, right? So he was just letting things happen to him. It just kind of like, well, yeah, I'll just pick that out. And we think we're playing an active role because, I go and I like this shirt, I'll buy it. I like those pants, and oh, there's a good deal on those shoes, I'll get them. And we think we're playing an active role, it was still pretty a passive role. letting it, happen. And he's like, somebody had said something to me and then kind of pushed it. And so he actually hired a stylist. He hired this woman to take him out shopping, work with him on his style and his career and the space he's working in, and help him dress. And so she went to the store with him, went through their budget, fitted all the clothes, picked out all the outfits, picked out the shoes. She picked out everything. She hired him, and it was, it wasn't cheap, but because he had to pay her and he had to pay for all the wardrobe and stuff. But man, he looked fantastic. He looked sharp, and he passed on her information to me. But this is what he said, and it was amazing. He said, I hired her. She changed my full appearance. And he said, within a very short time, I got so much more work than I can handle. And I was able to charge much higher prices, literally just because of my appearance. And it was amazing. I was like, what? For real? Seriously? And it would work through it, right? And he just changed everything. And I realized, wow, there's another area where we can be far more deliberate. And so I went out and just totally changed my whole wardrobe, right? And I'm still going to keep doing that, adjusting that. And maybe you could do that too. That's just an area of your life. You're like, wait a minute, let's just be way more proactive here about the appearance. And again, this is not shallow. Like I'm not talking about that being superficial, but it's just appearances, they do matter. And it's the appearance of your yard and your house, the condition of your house. Even you guys can tell the difference, right? When somebody walks in and the house has been done by an interior decorator and it's been designed really well, like there's a difference. There is a marked difference. I've told you before in other podcasts, our friends, they had an Airbnb, and this is true with like an Airbnb, right? You hire an interior decorator, and they arrange it right and tell you what to put where and how to decorate it, and it transforms it. And our friends were able, I think, like triple the price they were charging per night, and it made it all of a sudden just massively profitable by altering that. Right, so there's things we're just letting happen that if like with a little tweak, like it changes everything. So from your car, from your house, to all those areas of your life, your relationships, to the kind of work you do, like take ownership of that. Get it on a vision board. Are you using a vision board? Do you have one up? And are you using it? So many people don't have one. Those who do often don't use it. Are you standing in front of it every day and feeling it, looking at it, envisioning it? Do you have a planner? Do you have your schedule? The things we schedule are the things that get done. Do you have a battle board up? I've talked about the battle board. Do you have a philosophy journal? Oh, you guys, I'm just geeking out about this. Oh, here's a perfect example. I'm geeking out. We're revamping the whole philosophy journal and into this like life journal. We're taking the Extraordinary Life Planner, we're taking the philosophy journal, taking all these business ideas, life ideas, we're all incorporating it into one epic journal. Like an all-in-one extraordinary journal for envisioning your life and actually executing on it. Right? Making it happen all in one spot. I'm so geeking out, right? And then I was in this spot of like, well, I don't know how to do that. Like, where do you do that? And so I get online, and you think you're making efforts, right? Because I'm like, no, we need it to be custom. We need a whole different look and feel and components. It needs to be interchangeable, and they need to be able to choose like, how do we do that? So I Google it, right? I jump on Amazon and look, get on Etsy and look at all these different places. And I didn't see any of the ones I liked. I didn't see them. I'm like, well, I want that element, but I want this element. I want it combined in the same journal. And so I was walking through this process, right? And like, can't do it. How do you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And then you'd find one, you're like, okay, yeah, but then it was so expensive at a retail price instead of a wholesale cost. I'm like, oh, you can't even, it just won't work. So I could have stopped, right? I could have stopped right there and be like, well, that just won't work. And I'm like, no, I'm taking ownership for the details, the outcomes, everything I want. I'm not going to just let things happen. I'm going to make them happen, right? And so I started doing more research, started figuring things out. And you guys, this is true. This is true for, I would say, any ability or skill or knowledge that you want to acquire. You can do it. Man, if I could emphasize one thing, you have far more power than you think you do to control the outcomes and circumstances in your life. Far, far more. And what's interesting is we make it, the things we don't know or understand, we're so quick to hand those over to play the puppet, right? To think, I can't do that. And because we don't understand it and we don't know how to do it, we just automatically kind of push it into this space of like, that's outside of my ability. It's outside of my zone. Like I don't, and almost, it's almost like you wouldn't articulate it. You just automatically think like, I can't do that. I can't figure that out. It's easy to toss it over in that space. And so I want to invite you to look at it. And if there's something in some area of your life, even while you've been listening to this, you're like, oh yeah, that area of my life or that thing. Think about it and say, okay, how could I figure that out? Would it be worth it to figure it out? Can I make that happen? So anyways, I started doing the research on this and I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to at least understand it. I want to understand every piece of it. I want to understand the inserts. I want to understand the actual leather. I want to understand the pieces. So I bought several copies. You guys know I've been buying leather journals for years. I love them. And so I went through all of the ones I already have. I'm like, how'd they do this? How'd they build this? How's this put together? And then I got online, I'm like, is there a leather store around? And there happened to be one really close by. So I'm like, yes, I'm going. I'm going to at least understand it. And think about this. Go through every part of your life that's important, every part of your business, any hobby, any skill, anything you want to do. Understand it. Wrap your mind around it. If it's important to you or enjoyable, or you're passionate about it, or if it'll change the way you're doing things, if it's worth it to you, like you can't do it for everything, but you can do it for a lot of things. So wrap your mind around it. Make sure you understand that thing inside and out. And look for options, look for strategy, look for possibilities. Like we're getting, I mean, I've been doing this for years and I still find that I get stuck in certain areas. And so we're getting better and I'm being more intentional. Rachel and I are like, okay, what about this piece of our business? What about this piece of our lives? Well, historically we haven't done much about it. We've kind of let it happen because we didn't understand it. We don't know that space. And so you start talking to people who've mastered it. And this is what's so cool. We live in a world of just so many interesting and skilled and talented human beings, many of whom have like dedicated their lives to one little area where you've not done anything in that area of your life. And you can learn from them and you can see the experience. So I walked in there into this leather shop and I'm like, all right, here's my idea. Here's what I want to do. Like, knowing almost nothing, I'm like, how would this happen? And he's like, oh, easy, let's go. And this guy had been, geeking out. He's made it his life. So for him, it was just the easiest thing ever. He's like, this and this and this and this and this and this and this. We walked through the store, he handed me everything. And I was like, what? Like, it's totally doable, right? He just unlocked it for me. And so we're excited about that. Start creating the I don't know, what do you call those? The original pieces, right? The prototype or whatever, is that what it's called? We're going to start with those. And like, I'm so excited. And we did the same thing with, we just got this new adventure vehicle for our whole family. And I was like, well, how do they do this? How do they pull that off? And I want this customization and this. And so I started calling around. I started doing research and I found this amazing duo. It's the father and son. They kind of started this business doing metal fabrication, and they built this unbelievable custom rack for the full safari roof rack, right, with a custom fit for a rooftop tent, a ladder. I mean, just epic stuff. So we can take anything. This applies to little things and huge things, where you can just literally make this happen. So, are you doing it? Are you making it happen? What have you made happen in the last 4 to 8 weeks? Or have you just kind of been coasting or drifting and letting life happen? What things do you have in your life to really live for? What are you excited about? What are you going to do? How will you make the rest of this year? We have 4 months left, you guys. And oh man, do not let 2020 be defined by COVID. You define it. You define it. What are you going to do to make this year, like to overshadow the whole COVID thing? Like, what are you going to do that's so big, so special, so powerful, so proactive, where you're in charge? How are you going to make it so memorable and so important and so special? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to do better? Please do not let another month go by without significant memories. Get it on your vision board. Get it in your planner. Get it, get this journal, the Extraordinary Life Planner, the philosophy journal, all of that, right? Schedule it. Make it happen. Create memories. What are you excited about? And I'm giving this challenge to my clients. What are you excited about today? What are you excited about this week? What are you excited about this month? And have your calendar reflect that. Have your life reflect that. Where you're super proactive. You're just taking charge of literally every aspect of your life and saying, you know what? Because I just know I work with enough human beings. I've done it myself. I know I can confidently say that there are things in your life you've just been letting happen. You haven't taken ownership of those things. And perhaps for a while you've believed that they're out of your control. Maybe it's your spouse's habits or family dynamics. Maybe it's a children's behavior. Maybe it's it's just been like, well, it's just always been that way. I hear that generationally. Well, we've always done it that way. And my grandparents were like that, and my parents, and so I am, and my kids are doing it. And we just kind of sit down and say, well, that's the way things are. And we play the puppet. So, I love this stuff. I love it. And I want you to share it with me. Like, shoot me a message. Connect with me on social media or send me an email. Like, I want to hear, like, what are you going to do differently? What are you going to take ownership of? What are the things you've been just letting happen in your life? And I invite you and challenge you to be far more proactive, to dramatically increase your response ability, and to pick up that thing that's just been sitting there and make it happen for you. Life can be absolutely extraordinary. And even when there's limitations, right? So a lot of the borders of foreign countries are closed right now for travel. What can you do? So we went on a road trip, right? And we now have created an amazing road trip vehicle. And we wanted to lead trips, right? We were going to lead trips internationally. We had all kinds of trips and they didn't happen. So I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we put together a backpacking trip and it is packed, overpacked. We have all these amazing people showing up. The first people show up today, right? So a bunch of them are going to be staying with us for weeks just for fun. And then we're going to lead this epic backpacking trip up in North Carolina. Right, we're making things happen, and now we're researching what countries are open. And there's a few great countries, bold, brave, awesome countries that are opening up. Okay, let's go there. Let's make that happen. We've been thinking through all kinds of ways to shift the business and new offerings and the change in the economy and the change in society. We're so stoked right now because we're rolling out this whole new platform for education. And education now needs to be totally reworked. This is the time to reform it. Like people have been trying for years. We've been trying for years to reform traditional education. And because of the COVID scare, it's happening. And they're being forced to do things differently. But all businesses are being forced to do things differently. Ones that just believed the only way they could operate their business was brick and mortar were now forced to figure out how to be innovative and creative. So they're totally transforming their business. So we're actually adding a lot more offerings to ours in the whole education space. And this is perfect because it's the way we want to educate our children. Now we're going to create this other offering and throw it out there. Resources for parents and resources for youth and children. The time has come. I've been working on it for years. It is time to roll out major resources for men. And this is going to be a huge emphasis for me. I'm going after it, gangbusters. We're going to help men really rise up to be the man, to be the husband, the father, the person that they know, the man they know they can be and they have the power to be, and take ownership, right? No more drifting, no more coasting, no more kind of just feel like you're in a walking coma or like you're dying inside. It's time to bring it to life. Oh man, this is so good. So share it with me, guys. Love you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being great people. Thanks for being deliberate. And you guys are already incredibly deliberate about your lives. Will you share this message? Share the podcast, but share the message as well. Like, let's help people switch from just letting life happen to them. And again, here's where we saw this. I want to just share this one last thought. It really became clear to us. We interacted with people on this trip who, like, literally the only thing that happens in their lives are things that happen to them. When you meet up, like, hey, what have you been doing? What's going on? What's this? And all they have is this list of things that happened to them, and they're usually not good things. Oh, this went wrong. Oh, this happened to me. Oh, somebody did this and that. Oh, and this. And the whole list was just things that had happened to them. And they weren't very responsive in a good way to it. Because things will happen, but we all have the response ability. Well, no, we don't. We have the opportunity to cultivate response ability, the ability to respond to it. And so I don't want you to just sit through life and just let life happen to you and just, you have this whole list of like, oh, this is how these bad things just happened to me as I was sitting here existing. And I get it. We try to get into this place. I don't know why we do this. It's social conditioning. We try to get to this place where we don't have to do anything, where everything is very comfortable and convenient. And we can just, it's this weird, dreamy idea of like, I just can just be, and I don't have to do anything, and I don't have to work hard, I don't have to try, I don't have to strive, no challenges, no struggles, just totally convenient and comfortable. And it's just not real. It's just not real, because if you're not chasing things down, then things will happen to you. And it's just it's always the better choice and the better life and the better life story to make things happen for you. So get after it, my friends. Go hard. Go gangbusters. If you need some help and other resources, like, again, go to our websites, gregdenning.com, extraordinaryfamilylife.com, worldschoolacademy.com. Like, there's resources there for education, for personal development, for family, all of it. If you're ready to seriously level up, I just got a couple new amazing coaching clients. I've got a few spots left. If you're ready to take full, extreme ownership of every detail of your life and get it to the next level, coaching is the only way to do it, man. It really is. To have somebody there who's living what they teach and practice and just take full ownership and say, look, this thing, and this thing, no more letting it happen. You're going to make it happen for you. And man, it is a game changer and so exciting, so rewarding, so fulfilling, so fun. Life can be so awesome. Life can be so awesome. Anyway, love you guys. Have an absolutely fantastic week. And as always, reach upward.